The dust has settled from Abu Dhabi and it's time to review the 2024 season. But where did we go right and where did we go wrong? Let's find out. What is up, everyone? Welcome to another episode of F1 Fantasy Pole Position. It is Friday, December 13th, spooky wookie, and my name is Ewan, and we are here to review the 2024 F1 Fantasy season. This will be the second to last episode, probably of the winter until 2025. I'm going to do this one, and then I'm going to do one more episode next week, which, if you do not know, I put out a kind of call to action, kind of let me know what you think, a lessons learned video. So hit me up on X, Blue Sky, TikTok, at F1 Fantasy Ewan. Let me know your lessons learned from the 2024 season, and I will incorporate them into the video next week. Getting some great responses already, but if you want your lesson to be learned or that you learned to be in the podcast or the YouTube channel next week, let me know in the comments, on Twitter, wherever you want to hit me up. So if you have any lessons learned from this season, let me know. The results to the FanAmp F1 survey will also be out next week. So I'll probably do a quick 5-minute video on that as well, or I might just kind of put it into the front end of that video, just kind of depending where the time goes this weekend and next week. But yeah, those are going to be like the kind of last two pieces of content before I kind of hibernate, enjoy the holidays. Hopefully you enjoy them too. But if you've enjoyed this YouTube channel over the 2024 season, like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel. It helps out greatly with all the algorithms and whatnot as we go into the wind tunnel for 2025 and kind of look to improve the channel. But enough of that. Let's get back. Enough of the future. Let's look a little bit in the past. And the 2024 season, points scored, positions gained, overtakes, all that fun stuff that we were chasing all season long in F1 Fantasy. As you can see here, now I'm going to go points scored first. Verstappen, Norris, Leclerc, Piastri, Sainz. No kind of qualms about that there. Positions gained, however, I was on the F1 Fantasy homepage this morning, when I was putting together this episode, and it said that Lewis Hamilton has 69 positions gained this season. I'm not saying that they don't know what's going on, but F1 Fantasy Tools has it at 54. I'm not going to make a huge deal out of it. I might just be wrong. I might be counting F1 Fantasy Tools thing wrong for all I know. But looking at it here, this is how I have positions gained for the 2024 season. This is including sprints, but Zhou Guanyu 56. So he's still king of the overtakes, despite kind of going down a little bit from the 2023 season. Zhou Guanyu did come up top for positions gained. I guess he's not king of the overtakes, but king of the positions gained. Hamilton, Leclerc 34, Magnussen 33, and Pierre Gasly at 28 for positions gained over the course of the season. That doesn't really seem like a lot, but I guess played out over 24 races, like that's kind of good every now and then. I guess if you're qualifying high, you obviously have less positions gained because you don't see Lando Norris, Max Verstappen, Oscar Piastri, Carlos Sainz on there. You do see Leclerc and Hamilton, who have a couple of faux pas on Saturday, and then overtakes Magnussen 133, Perez 129, Hamilton 124, Stroll 120, and Hulkenberg 115. So those were the leaders for the 2024 season in those categories. As far as fastest laps, Norris led the way with 6. Even though I don't know if anyone remembers this, he got his swiped in Singapore as well by Daniel Ricciardo after the now former VCarb asset, which is now going to be Visa Cash App Racing Bulls, I think, because they never actually officially said that the RB stood for Racing Bulls last year, and now they're going to be called Racing Bulls. It's a whole thing. So I'm going to start calling them Racing Bulls, try to get ready for 2025, but let me know what we should be calling VCarb in the comments below. Leclerc and Verstappen also had 3 fastest laps. Alonso, Russell, Hamilton had 2. Alonso having 2 fastest laps, I do not remember that happening at all. It must have been way early in the season. Driver of the day was Norris with 7, Leclerc with 5, Sainz and Hamilton with 3, Piastri with 2, Zhou Guanyu, Ricciardo, Behrman, and Verstappen with 1. And then DNFs, Albon 7, Gasly, Stroll, Tsunoda, Perez with 4, and then Hulkenberg and Colapinto with 3. So despite only racing in the final 9 races of the season, 10 races of the season. Franco Colapinto still managed to put up 3 DNFs, and they all came at the end of the year as the shine kind of start to fade from the Argentinian driver. Not sure if he's going to have a place on the 2025 grid anymore. It looks highly unlikely unless something drastic happens over the winter. Still awaiting official word from Red Bull about what they're going to do with their second driver's seat. So if anything kind of pops off there before the final episode of the 2024 season next week, I will cover that there and then. Top 10 high scores from the 2024 season. Verstappen dominating this chart as well. 1, 2, 3 on there. Leclerc's on there twice. Norris on there twice. Sainz, Piastri, Hamilton all get on there as well. Brazil will probably be the performance of the 2024 season when it comes to F1 fantasy. Just an insane Sunday from the Dutch driver. 77 points. If you went with him there, you probably had a huge rank increase. Let me know in the comments below if you were one of those managers that went there. Verstappen in China also was a sprint. Norris with a dominant performance at Zandvoort coming out the summer break. Leclerc a couple of times. Norris again. Hamilton with his win in Silverstone as well, 47 points. But yeah, just some cracking scores this season. Verstappen really kind of putting it up there with 77 points in one race is just insane. Top 10 high scores for the constructors. Red Bull, Ferrari, Red Bull, McLaren, McLaren. So not a ton to kind of learn from this, but the one lesson that you can see here is outside of Red Bull in Brazil, when they were the dominant car in 2025, or in 2024, look at all these races. They are in like the first 10 races of the season. China, Japan, Saudi Arabia, Bahrain, Miami. That might be the first 6 races right there. And they were totally dominant. And this is one of the big lessons learned that a lot of people have been tweeting at me, hitting me up on the F1 Fantasy Tools Discord. So thank you to F1 Fantasy Tools for letting me use them as like kind of a sounding board for that to kind of peruse the crowd and their opinions. But yeah, just double constructor and then a couple of B tier assets to begin the 2025 season, and like building budget. Those are going to be the 2 things that we majorly cover in next week's episode. But yeah, just looking at how dominant Red Bull were. Ferrari had a pretty good weekend in Australia when Max Verstappen DNF'd, but like, yeah, and then McLaren, when they were super strong in the middle, like right around coming out of the summer break with Monza and Azerbaijan, and then Ferrari at Coda were also quite spectacular. No Mercedes on here at all. So it really was like when we started the season, a lot of people were able to run Red Bull and Ferrari. That was the right way. And then right around, let's see here, Miami, when McLaren started to show that form, when they brought that update and they were spectacular, Lando Norris grabbing his first career win in Formula One that weekend, a lot of people flipped over to McLaren, saved all that money, and were able to upgrade their C tier assets to another B tier asset. And that's something we're going to have to think about. But that's for the lessons learned episode. I'm really trying not to mesh these episodes too much together, but just something from this constructors that you can see that Red Bull were so dominant early in the season that if we can get a handle on who's going to be the dominant constructor or the 2 dominant constructors going into the 2025 season, favorites in the clubhouse right now would be McLaren and Ferrari as they ended the 2024 season so strong. But we will see. Also, Lewis Hamilton joining Ferrari. So yeah, those are going to be the top 2 cars and probably the top 2 driver lineups on the grid. So definitely something to think about there. Season stats for value. And this is, like I said, for the lessons learned episode next week. People are like, you just got to build value. And it's 100% accurate. So driver value increase was Magnussen 8.1, Leclerc at 7, Ocon at 6.8. Constructor value increase was Ferrari at 6, Haas at 5.9, and Mercedes at 5. Driver points per million, Leclerc 1.23, Norris 1.12, Piastri at 1.07, and constructors points per million, Ferrari 2.59, McLaren 2.45, Mercedes 2.13, and Red Bull 2.06. So even despite going up the second most in constructor value for Haas getting those price jumps week after week after week after week, they were nowhere near the points per million bracket. So it really was just a constructor dominated game this season. We'll see if that continues into 2025 with all of the survey responses that FanAmp and the Fantasy Formula got back and passed on to F1. We'll see what kind of changes come to the 2025 season. If there's any scoring changes in positive points, I'm thinking negative points will be addressed eventually. But yeah, we'll go over that in the survey video as well. But yeah, despite Haas going up 5.9 million, they still like never really came close. There were a couple of weekends at the end there where I was like, should I go Haas? Can I make it up with another driver? And it just never came close. I never actually went with that, but it never came close to kind of getting to that area where you really could go Haas and just kind of improve another driver. But that's the season stats for value. Interesting thing that I saw on the F1 fantasy homepage as well is this thing called the Dream Team. And I was watching Rain Fantasy's season review, and he kind of did some math about their averages and said that they would have finished like in the top 10K. I took it one step further. It wouldn't be an F1 fantasy pole position episode without some loosey-goosey math on my end. So what I did was I tried to like, if this team played all their chips at like certain optimal times, how that would go down. And they would have finished with about 5,580 points and finished about top 600 to 700 in the world, a cost cap of 140 million, which is way above the budget that I ended up with my T1 squad. And like they would have played, they're limitless in China. They're no negative in Monaco because they got the double Haas here. So, I mean, it's a little hindsighty. Obviously, final fix Canada for Leclerc to Hamilton, autopilot in Azerbaijan because Piastri kind of dominated that weekend, 3X in Qatar, and then the wild card, you just wouldn't have played it because it's the Dream Team. And yes, once again, without trying to get too much into that lessons learned episode, just 2 B tier drivers, 2 highly increasing C tier drivers, along with Zhou Guanyu as kind of the back marker, and then 2 big constructors. So, like, could you imagine if someone just set this lineup in March or February, whenever the game started, and then they just, it was the final race of F1 this season. Let me see how my team did. And they just ended up, like, they wouldn't have played any chips, but they still finished, like, about top 10K, just below top 10K, I think is what Rain was saying on his video. Yeah, just insane. So it's really important to get this right at the start of the season. There's going to be a lot of content, a lot of, like, thoughts about, I think, preseason testing. We're going to really analyze this in the F1 fantasy community because last year I had a bold predictions video in the preseason. I was like, Haas won't even score 10 points. Magnussen and Hulkenberg will both be out of the team, which I think is right. And they'll both finish like 19th and 20th in the driver's standings. I don't think any of my bold predictions were more wrong than that. However, at the beginning of the season, their team principal said that they're not even expecting anything, that we shouldn't expect them to be anywhere close to the grid. They will be so far away from 10th. And then in preseason testing, they completed the most laps. Is that something that we're going to need to watch for 2025? Like, if Sauber comes out and Hulkenberg and Gabriel Bortoleto have like fantastic few days in Bahrain, nothing's really looking wrong. They don't look that slow. Could the Sauber pairing maybe be the new Haas in 2025? Just something that we've got to look out for at F1 Fantasy, something that I will try to remember over the winter break that we are experiencing right now. But yeah, the Dream Team was spectacular. It was actually a really cool thing that F1 Fantasy put this up because I think on like FPL and stuff, there's people that track it like, oh, this team's like 300th in the world and they haven't made a transfer. It's like, I put so much effort into this game. And but yeah, so Charles Leclerc was the 2X, Oscar Piastri, Zhou Guanyu, Kevin Magnussen, Nico Hulkenberg, with McLaren and Ferrari as the 2 constructors. And yeah, great job by the Zombie Dream Team here. Going over to my squad now, and I'm going to try to like apply this to the masses because I think there were quite a few of us that were in the same boat as myself. where I went with the Max Verstappen, Red Bull, and V-Carb lineup to begin the year. And it's interesting to kind of look at the points because over the first half, the first quarter of the season, it wasn't too bad. There were actually a couple of weeks where my T1 squad was outscoring Team 3. The Team 3 squad had, I think it started with Charles Leclerc and then Ferrari and Red Bull. So I kind of like split these strategies up, and it was just interesting to see by the end of the season where they had all gone. So these are the first 12 races of the season on this page, and then on the next page is going to be the last 12 races of the season. So Bahrain outscored by 11. Saudi Arabia, I think I had Lance Stroll, so that didn't go too well. Outscored there as well. But then came back in Australia because I played the no negative, so I didn't get affected by that Max Verstappen ship. Japan, I outscored them, or I outscored my T3 team. Just for context, T1 squad was top 8K in the world at the end of the season. Team 3 was 911th in the world. So two pretty drastically different outcomes for these squads. I outscored my T3 squad in Japan, outscored them in China. The USA wasn't too bad. Imola was good as well. And then this kind of second quarter of the season right here, this is when I started to lose value. I started to lose points, and the season kind of took a turn for the worse. 131 or 158 to 259 in Monaco. I did go double Haas that weekend in my T1 squad, so that explains a lot of that pain there. Canada, I was getting outscored by 30 points. Spain, I was outscored by 80 points. Austria was outscored by another 65 points. Then at Silverstone, I barely outscored that team by 10 points. So that second quarter of the season, that's when it was like, I'm not sure how much I'm going to be able to move up in the world rankings here. I was going pretty well after China. And then Miami, I kind of jumped onto Lando. He did have a DNF in that sprint. It didn't go that well. But Sunday he came through there. But maybe if it had been like China with the Limitless, hit the wild card. But the interesting thing is here, after 12 races, after half of the season, my Team 1 budget was 118.7 million. So that's about, I was going up about 1.5 million a week in that team. And then the T3 squad was 125.6 million. So that's like 2.1 million a week. So over the course of 12 weeks, as you can see, it came out to about 7 million difference in my team budget. And that is huge. That was like upgrading Lance Stroll to Charles Leclerc at that point of the season. So really, really important for that budget. We're just going to hammer that every single episode from now until the opening in March. Just budget. But yeah, so second quarter of the season here is where it really started to build a gap. Going up into the final half of the season here, as you can see, my T1 team ended with 130.7 million in cost cap. Team 3 was 139. So that also still, it kind of caught up in value a little bit there with the T1 squad. I kind of gained about 12 million there, and then about 14 million for my T3 team. But yeah, the points weren't as bad in the second half of the season either. Like I outscored the T3 squad or came pretty close within the realm a couple of times. Coda, when I played the 3 DRS boost, got outscored by about 40 points there. But as you can see, like, it really wasn't all that bad for the T1 squad, just kind of keeping up with the T3 team throughout the course of the second half. It was really just, if we go back to here, this like second quarter of the season from about Monaco to Silverstone here, it got real bad real quick. And I couldn't recover from it. So that's a little bit unfortunate on my end there. And then, yeah, the second half, it was kind of playing some catch up, taking some punts like in Abu Dhabi, no Lando for me, cost me a shot at the top 5K. I'm not entirely sure what would have happened if I had just played Lando with Charles Leclerc or gone with Charles Leclerc over Oscar Piastri as my 2X driver. But oh, well, it is what it is at this point. But yeah, so just kind of interesting to compare a team that finished well within the top 10K to a team that finished just inside the top 1K. Not ton of like outscoring. I mean, like week over week, like 8 points there, 15 points there, like do add up over the course of a 24 race season. But like, yeah, the teams were pretty evenly matched in points. It just like the budget was like, it just made it so much safer. I had like two consistent drivers there for so much longer in my T3 squad compared to the T1 team, where like I kind of had to like take risks, hope I could build budget. And that is a little bit of a problem that a lot of managers on X and in the content creator universe found that like we kind of got stuck with the triple back markers and we couldn't really get out of it, which was unfortunate. And no matter what we could really do, like we would have just like I think personally I believed in VCarb, which was wrong. Then I jumped on Haas too late, which was wrong. Or when I did jump on them, they both got disqualified and then DNF'd in Monaco. So I was burned by that. Then I didn't believe, like, I couldn't really get anywhere because I like misplayed my chips when Alpine looked good in Brazil. I didn't take the punt on Mercedes in Vegas. So there are just like these little moments in the season where could have made a big difference and just didn't jump on it or believe in it enough. So that's something I'll have to work on as well. Looking at the chip review here, where all my teams kind of played their chips. So I played the two most powerful chips, the Limitless chip in China and the 3x DRS boost in Coda for both of my teams. Not too much of a difference there. The no negative, I played in Australia for the T1 squad. And if I remember correctly, I was doing a live stream for that episode or that race. And I was just like, I don't know. I want to get a chip going. Like, let's see what happens. And like, I got lucky that Max DNF'd and it like actually gave me a boost with a no negative. But yeah, I was just like I was a little impatient using chips last season at some point. So yeah, that didn't go as well. Autopilot worked out for Brazil, but then again, like my T3 squad, I used my autopilot in Japan for no reason, even though like Red Bull were still like really clearly and you could kind of get to them. Final fix messed that up in Azerbaijan. I used the wild card in the Netherlands to kind of bring in triple McLaren. I believe I could have been more patient with that. I didn't even use my wild card on the T3 squad, but overall, like using my chips is definitely something I will be looking to work on in 2025. Let me know how y'all's chips went. Did you guys beat me in all of these chip usages? Like it didn't really go all that well for me in the chip department. China was really good. And the DRS, 3x DRS was okay. But yeah, everything else I just kind of misplayed. So that's something I need to work on as well. And that's kind of going to like, that does it for my part of the season review here. But I do want to show you guys something that the fantastic guys over at F1fantasytools.com have put together. All right, so here is F1fantasytools.com, their season summary tool, and it is fantastic. So just great job by them. Once again, they have been crushing it all season long in the F1 fantasy content. They're not necessarily making YouTube content like some of us here, but their website is just the destination for all F1 fantasy managers heading in for all of 25 and heading into the 2020 for all of 2024 and heading into the 2025 season. So this is where you can look at what your team has been up to, how did it do in certain aspects of the game, the transfer balance, where did you go, what did you do, transfer impact overall, transfer impact per race. Like as you can see here, you can go between the points impact. So like my Limitless, I had 164 points to what my team would have been. My no negative was plus 93. Scroll down, see where I went wrong. The wild card was bad. The Mexican Grand Prix was bad. Silverstone was bad. All that sort of stuff there. So that is really, really cool. The budget impact as well, like your transfers, what happened here. You can click on them. It shows you what your transfers you did. Norris to Leclerc, Red Bull to McLaren. I was plus 74 that weekend in Monaco for that, for budget gain at least, or that was 1.8 in budget. So that was great over there. like just all this fantastic data that we got here. There's transfer balance, transfer impact overview here. Good transfers for budget gave me 10.7 million overall. My transfers gave me a 9.9 budget increase, so not bad there. And my points impact gave me 593 points as well. Points distribution, like where you got your points from: McLaren, Ferrari, Red Bull, Mercedes, and the constructors. What kind of points you got over here: positions gained, fastest lap, drive of the day. So all that fun stuff. Positive events. So I got 68 of 130 of the positive events, which is fastest lap, drive of the day, and fastest pit stop. So yeah, not great. Less than half. I can do math. So yeah, not great. There, overview per event, like I had, yeah, just not great there. How much it impacted each race. So I got 50 out of 60 in Qatar, which is not bad either. Just all this data is absolutely fantastic. So I would highly recommend going on to f1fantasytools.com and looking at this yourself. You can learn some stuff from your team. And not only that, not only can you look at all of your teams, like your T1, like my T1 squad was bad. My T2 squad was my test team. My T3 squad here was top 1,000 in the world. I can go back, look at this versus my T1 squad. You can do the same thing as well. But you can even compare yourself to El Jefe, the guy that won the whole dang thing in 2024, Leapsfrog, Andrew Harris. And you can see what he did in 2024, where he went right, where he went wrong. And the biggest thing I noticed when I was going through this today before the episode was this budget impact here. Round 2, round 9, round 3, round 8, round 10, round 12. Like all of these transfers are pretty early on in the season when you're gaining budget. And he said that getting to the chance to play the 2 big constructors and 3 big drivers lineup really made the difference in his season when he was on the fantasy formula last week, 2 weeks ago. Oh yeah, last week. Yeah. And yeah, so that was really a big thing for him. As you can see, like the points impact from his transfers, like all kind of paid off as well. He had a couple of, like, his 3 DRS boosts didn't really pay off all that well, but transfer impact overall plus 681 points. When you compare that to my T1 squad, 593, a little bit lacking there. 371 for my T3 squad as well. So that's a little interesting. But yeah, like almost every transfer he made went well. So great job by the winner there. 71 of 130. So he hit more than me on that by a few. Negative events, he had 13 DNFs and disqualifications out of 116. So not bad at all there. Whereas I went with 20 there, 19, 27 in the T2 squad. I know F1 Fantasy Hub had a little bit of a tough time with that as well. So unfortunate for him. But yeah, just the ability to compare your team to the overall winner of F1 Fantasy is just such a fantastic resource. I'm pretty sure that they have made this free for everyone. And this is actually what the website is going to look like in 2025, from what I've been told. They're going to kind of put this all together, make this kind of the new, cleaner look. And yeah, it's going to be a fantastic resource for 2025. I've been using it for at least the 3 seasons that I've been playing, definitely the last 2 seasons when I've been making content for F1 Fantasy. So I would not be able to do most of the stuff that I do on this channel without f1fantasytools.com. So great job by them. Thank you for everything that they do for us as F1 Fantasy content creators and for the community as a whole. And that's going to do it for today's episode of F1 Fantasy Pole Position. There's going to be one big episode and maybe like one smaller episode, or maybe I'll just slam that all into one episode next week with the lessons learned. So if you haven't hit me up on X yet, I know a lot of you have. Thank you for reaching out, responding. I really appreciate it. It's going to be some great content for the video. But if you haven't, let me know what your lesson was learned or what lessons you've learned in 2024. let me know on here. Comment below. I'll pin a comment. Just reply to that. Whatever you want to do. Hit me up on X, Blue Sky, Instagram, TikTok at F1 Fantasy Ewan. Yep, that's my name. And yeah, we can get that in the episode for next week. Hopefully, you've enjoyed the season review. It was kind of actually the first time I've done one of those. Just looking back on the season as a whole, let me know what you like, what you didn't like. I'll improve it for 2025 because we will be back in 2025 and we will be bigger and stronger than ever. Once again, I think I've said this for the last 2 or 3 episodes, but the support this season has been overwhelming. It's been really nice to be part of a community that just is really positive. There's a lot of fantasy sports communities out there that are not as positive as the F1 fantasy community. So great job by y'all guys. Great job by all the content creators. Like we all kind of get along quite swimmingly, which is unusual, I feel like, for an F1 fantasy sport. So great job by them as well. I will see you next week for the lessons learned episode and whatever survey results we get from the FanAmp and the F1 or the FanAmp F1 fantasy and the fantasy formula survey that was put together. Enjoy the weekend. Avoid anything spooky on Friday the 13th. And once again, thanks for listening. Thanks for watching, and I will talk to you next time.